Welcome to Starting Line Church. My name is Allison. I'm one of the pastors here, and we're really glad that you have joined us today, wherever you're watching from, whenever you're watching this. We are continuing our series called Journeying to Freedom, which is going to take us through a journey through the book of Exodus. This book is about the nation of Israel's deliverance from Egypt and their development and growth as a nation. Up until this point in our story, we know that the Israelites are in slavery in the land of Egypt. They're being oppressed and worked by Pharaoh. We've learned that Moses, he was born and he was adopted into the royal family in Egypt, but that he made a big mistake. And because of that mistake, he fled to the country of Midian and went into hiding. If you're here last week, you know that Jake did an awesome job walking us through Exodus 3 with Moses and the burning bush moment where he learns that God is calling him back to Egypt and to lead his people out of slavery. After this miraculous moment with God, Moses goes on to debate with God about him being the right person for the job. And in Moses' uncertainty of the situation, he declared himself as inadequate to do this. And even though God gave him sign after sign confirming that he was the person, this is the way that he wanted things to happen, Moses is being stubborn and not cooperative with the plan. And he asked God to send someone else for the task. Being the merciful God that he is, he sends Moses' brother Aaron to go with him. So Moses takes his wife and his children, and they're headed back to Egypt, where he was instructed to find Aaron, to tell the Israelites the plan of what was going to happen, and for the two of them, Moses and Aaron, to go to Pharaoh and ask him to let God's people go, to set them free from the bondage of slavery. The journey to freedom begins now. What do you think of when you hear the word freedom? Maybe you think of being allowed to leave the house after your quarantine from COVID is over. Maybe you think about letting go of a job, or letting go of a place, or letting go of a time of life, or letting go of a relationship. Maybe you think of the feeling that an 18-year-old kid gets when he or she goes off to college, thinking that they know everything. Maybe you think of the privilege even we have in this country to gather together as a church, because not all countries have that freedom. Whatever it is, it's freedom. The actual definition of freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants to, without any hindrance or restraint. Freedom is the absence of any kind of domination or rule over someone else. Freedom is also referred to as the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved by something. That is what the Israelites were. They were enslaved. They were oppressed. And they desperately needed to be delivered from their circumstances. They wanted to experience this freedom of no dominance over them. And I think if we're honest, we all desire freedom of some kind. Maybe you have things like anxiety or worry that impacts your everyday life. Maybe you're comparing yourself to other people and you have this low self-esteem because of it. Maybe you have a sin addiction that you know you need to stop, but you can't. Maybe you're held captive by shame because of a mistake that you made a long time ago. Maybe things like gossip and jealousy and greed and anger are holding you captive from being free. Maybe something was done to you and you're a victim, but you can't seem to overcome what happened. Whatever it is in your life specifically, God wants you to experience freedom from those things. What we are imprisoned or enslaved. Freedom is so crucial to our journey with Jesus. I don't know if it's talked about enough, but freedom is possible. And so today, we're going to dive into this concept to see what God has in store for us and see how we can experience this freedom that we're talking about. We're going to be in Exodus chapter 5, where it's time for Moses and Aaron to go and speak to Pharaoh about this idea of freedom. Let's see what happens in Exodus chapter 5, starting at verse 1. After this presentation to Israel's leaders, Moses and Aaron went and spoke to Pharaoh. They told him, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go so that they may hold a festival in my honor in the wilderness." "Is that so?" said Pharaoh. "And who is the Lord? Why should I listen to him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." But Aaron and Moses persisted. "The God of the Hebrews has met with us," they declared. "So let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness so we can offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. If we don't, he will kill us with a plague or with the sword." Pharaoh replied, "Moses and Aaron, why are you distracting the people from their task? Get back to work. Look, there are many of your people in the land, and you are stopping them from being able to work." We're going to dive right in this morning to what we see first about freedom in our story today. We see that one, freedom cannot be gained by being passive. Freedom cannot be gained by being passive. With boldness and confidence, Moses and Aaron take action and they approach Pharaoh, the one who is holding the Israelites captive. On behalf of God, they say, "Enough is enough. No more captivity, no more imprisonment, no more of this injustice and control you have over our people." Even in their fear and feelings of inadequacy that we already learned about, Moses and Aaron realized that the Israelites would never experience freedom just by hoping for it. They were not going to live in freedom by not saying anything or not doing anything. They were not going to walk away free if they didn't try to fight against the control and captivity they were facing. Moses and Aaron were not passive. They didn't stand back and watch. If you want to experience freedom, you have to confront what's holding you captive. I don't know what that confrontation looks like for you in your life. I don't know what you're going through. It could be having a conversation with someone or beginning to process things that you have been through. Maybe it's spending time in prayer and conversation with God, or asking other people to join you in prayer, to ask other people to pray for what's going on. Maybe that confrontation looks like just starting to seek some accountability for what's going on in your life. Maybe it's reading your Bible on a regular basis. It could be quitting or stepping away from something that's maybe harmful or not helpful in your life so you can commit to something new and healthy, even though it might be uncertain. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, I promise you that we must do something. Because freedom cannot be gained by being passive. And if we want to embrace freedom, we have to do something about what's holding us back from being free. Unfortunately, when Moses and Aaron approach Pharaoh boldly, he's not having any of it. Pharaoh was familiar with many gods because Egypt was filled with them. But he'd never heard of the God of Israel, and so because he had never heard of him, he said, "Why would I listen to him? Why does it matter?" Pharaoh assumed that the God of these slaves surely couldn't be very powerful. So he wasn't concerned with what God was telling him to do. So as we know, he refuses to listen because of his pride and because he did not know or respect God. And then we find out what happens next. Picking up at verse 6. That same day, Pharaoh sent this order to the Egyptian slave drivers and the Israelite foremen. "Do not supply any more straw for making bricks. Make the people get it themselves. But still require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy. That's why they're crying out. Let us go and offer sacrifices to our God. Load them down with more work. Make them sweat. That will teach them to listen to me. Moses and Aaron took their message to Pharaoh, just as God directed. They did exactly what God asked them to do. They were not passive, but confronted Pharaoh for holding their people captive with courage. But the result wasn't exactly what they thought it'd be. We just read that Pharaoh sent an order to the Egyptian slave drivers not to supply any more of the materials for them to build. So what they had to do is they would have to find everything on their own, and then they would have to build. And we learned that the slaves, they still had to keep their original production quota as before. So the result of Moses and Aaron not being passive, confronting what was going on, was harder work and more oppression for the Hebrew people. How is this helpful? How is this freedom? I know I think to myself that question, but it brings us to our second point about experiencing freedom. Sometimes things get worse before they get better. When we're talking about something like freedom, sometimes things get worse before they get better. If you don't know this about me, I love piles. I love piles, specifically piles of clothes, okay? Clean clothes, not dirty clothes. Don't come at me, okay? Even though I have a perfectly good closet, a perfectly good dresser, I find it easier just to keep everything in a pile on the floor, and instead of putting things away on a regular basis. I can just pull things out of there. It's all clean. That means, though, something important. That every so often, when I can't take it anymore and my husband almost breaks his ankle multiple times, I finally put it away. However, let me tell you, it always gets worse before it gets better. Because I have to pick up every single piece of clothing, put it on the bed, take it off the floor. I have to organize it into different sections so it's not all one big jumbled mess like it has been for months. So I feel like I have a little bit of structure. And it takes me hours. For all you people out there, clean freaks or whatever, or just normal people, I'm sorry if I'm making you hyperventilate. But if you want to fix the problem, and if I want to fix the problem and put the clothes where they belong, trust me, the mess gets way worse before it gets better. Because it's part of the process. It's the same way with our freedom. When the thing that we're being held captive by finally comes to light, and we're dealing with whatever it is, big or small, it's going to get messy. It's going to get hard because we're going to be working through whatever it is and processing whatever it is and seeking healing from whatever it is. When dealing with something you need freedom from, suffering, setbacks, and hardships will still occur. When trying to seek freedom, to seek something as big as being freed of something by having not something holding us captive any longer, it's normal that things are going to get worse before they get better because you're exposing a mess of circumstances, emotions, and sin and hurts, etc. So don't make the mistake of thinking that just because things get messy or worse for a time, that freedom is not possible in the end. Let's continue in our story, jumping down a little bit to verse 19. The Israelite foremen could see that they were in serious trouble when they were told, "You must not reduce the number of bricks you make each day." As they left Pharaoh's court, they confronted Moses and Aaron, who were waiting outside for them. The foreman said to them, "May the Lord judge and punish you for making us stink before Pharaoh and his officials. You have put a sword into their hands, an excuse to kill us." Then Moses went back to the Lord and protested, "Why have you brought all this trouble on our own people, Lord? Why did you send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh as your spokesman, he has even been even more brutal to your people. And you've done nothing to rescue them. The cries of all of these people are very real. It's here that the Israelites start to panic. They see that the workload that's been expected of them is near impossible. So they start turning on each other and turning on people. They complain to Pharaoh about what he was making them do. They get upset with Moses and Aaron, saying that what they did wasn't worth it. In their frustration, they point blame on others. Even Moses himself expected faster results and fewer problems after what he did. As we see, he's upset with God. It didn't look at all like they thought it would. But what all of them failed to realize is that when we want to experience freedom, it's a process. Freedom is a process. What Moses and Aaron did by approaching Pharaoh was only the beginning. What they did set in motion the rest of the story to unfold that comes later. What they did was the start to freedom that they and the Israelite slaves were eventually going to experience one day. Freedom is a process, because most times it takes really long time to overcome the thing you need freedom from. Because if you need freedom from something, that means that you were previously held captive. Big or small, it can be hard, it can be traumatic, it can be frustrating, it can be weary. If you need freedom from something, you've been weighed down. You're feeling pressure, feeling like there's a stack of bricks on your back. Seeking freedom from what's holding you back will not let you go, simply because you want it to or you hope it will. There is no way that Pharaoh is letting his slaves go after all these years simply because Moses and Aaron come and say, "Our God told you to." Not going to happen. We need more than one command. We need more than one ask. We need more than one prayer to experience true freedom. It's a consistent battle. There have been many times in my life where I've needed freedom from something that's holding me captive, that's bringing me down. And it doesn't just happen because I say, "Oh, I hope this happens." I have to battle it in a process. I think it's safe to say in our culture, freedom means having the right to do whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want, without harming someone else in the process. But I don't think that's God's design for freedom. His definition for freedom is to do what is right and what aligns with the desires of God. Freedom cannot be gained by being passive. Sometimes things get worse before they get better. And freedom is a process. But what's really cool about those three things is that they lead us to the conclusion that freedom is possible. And not just in heaven one day, but here on earth. And that's because of Jesus. You know, you think, wait. I thought we were talking about the Israelites in the Old Testament. What's happening? That's what's amazing about the story of God, is that it all connects. And things in Exodus connect to things in the Bible 1,000 years later. We know that the Israelites are journeying to freedom. We haven't seen the freedom yet, but we know it's coming because we know the end of the story. And just like God rescued the Israelites from slavery and freed them, Jesus Christ rescues us today. Jesus sacrificed his life by dying on a cross for your sin, raising to life 3 days later, gaining victory over death, and giving us an invitation to have an active relationship with the living God today. And because of that, in that relationship, we learn that He can free us from our bondage and from our sin and from the things that hold us captive, the things that we feel we can't overcome and can't escape in this life on our own. We have access to this freedom journey that the Israelites were on because of Jesus. Maybe you've never acknowledged Jesus Christ as your Savior, that He died for your sin, that He gave His life for your sin and your brokenness and your hurt, and He wants a relationship with you because there is more to life through Him. Today can be the day that you say yes to Jesus, that you say, today I want to give my life to Jesus. I am a follower of Jesus, and you acknowledge who He is so He can continue to transform your life. Maybe you already are a follower of Jesus and have a relationship with Jesus, but you've been feeling held captive by something in your life. And you need prayer for that because you want to experience this freedom that the Israelites eventually are going to experience from whatever it is that's holding you back. Today can be the day you can have that as well and start that freedom journey.